Unusual happening in your nervous system right now. Not later. Right now, as you read this, as you prepare to listen. Something that you might have been calling restlessness, or longing, or that low-frequency hum that sits just beneath your thoughts when the room gets quiet enough. You've been calling it different things depending on the day. Some days it feels like anticipation. Some days it feels like grief. Some days it's just a pressure behind your sternum that you can't name and can't explain and can't quite shake. That is not a mood. That is a signal. And what I'm going to tell you tonight is this. You are standing closer to a threshold than you have ever stood before. Not because of anything you did, not because you've been working hard enough, or meditating enough, or wanting it badly enough, but because of something that happens in quantum systems when they reach a very specific kind of saturation point. Something that physicists have a name for, and that your body already knows, even though your mind hasn't caught up yet. Tonight, in the span of a single listening, something is going to shift in how you understand what reality actually is, how it's built, how it changes, and what you have to do, or more precisely, what you have to stop doing in order to let a new one claim you. Not attract it, not manifest it. Claim it. There's a difference, and that difference is the gate. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. The quantum field is not a vending machine. It is not waiting for you to insert the right amount of positive thinking and then dispense a new life. That model, the one you've probably encountered before, is a reduction of something far stranger and far more precise. The actual mechanics of how a quantum system transitions from one state to another are not about desire. They're not about visualization, not in the way you've been taught. They're about something called coherence. And coherence is a physical condition, not an emotional one. Tonight, we're going to understand what that actually means. Because once you understand it, really understand it at the level where the body stops arguing with the mind, the gate opens. Not as a metaphor, as a functional shift in what is available to you. Let me tell you what tonight is and what it isn't. Tonight is not a motivation session. You don't need to be more motivated. Motivation is a pre-threshold state. It's the energy you use when you're still trying to push your way through a door that isn't ready to open. What we're doing tonight is different. We are going to locate the exact mechanism by which a quantum field, specifically the quantum field that your consciousness is embedded in and participates in, transitions from one stable configuration to another. We are going to understand why that transition requires a very specific kind of listening. And then we are going to do that listening. One night, one shift in coherence, one new reality that stops being potential and starts being claimed. That's the promise. And I don't make promises lightly on this channel. Every promise here is backed by something specific, something you can test, something you can feel the edges of. So let's begin at the beginning. Let's begin with what reality actually is. Most people move through their lives treating reality as if it is a fixed object, something solid, agreed upon, immovable. The chair is there, the job is there, the relationship is there, or it isn't. The bank account has a number in it. These things feel concrete because they register through the senses as stable, as persistent, as real in the way that only things you can touch or measure seem real. But here is what quantum mechanics actually tells us. Not the pop science version, not the motivational poster version, but the actual physics. At the level of fundamental particles, reality is not fixed. It is probabilistic. Every particle that makes up every object in your life, including the cells of your body, including the neurons firing as you listen to this, exists in a state of superposition until the moment it is observed or interacted with. Superposition means that the particle is not in one place, doing one thing with one set of properties. It is in a probability distribution, a spread of possible states, all simultaneously real in a mathematical sense, until the moment of collapse. Collapse is the word physicists use. It's a good word. When a quantum system in superposition interacts with its environment in a specific way, all those possible states collapse into one. The probability wave, which had been extended across many possibilities, suddenly becomes a single point, a single definite reality. Now, here is where it gets important for what we're doing tonight. The collapse is not random. This is the piece that most people miss. The collapse is shaped by the measurement context, by the conditions of the observation, the detector you use, the angle of approach, the state of the measuring system itself. All of these things influence which of the possible states the system collapses into. The environment participates in determining what becomes real. Your consciousness is an environment. Your nervous system is a measuring apparatus. And the quantum field that underlies your experience of reality is responsive to the conditions of your observation in ways that are not mystical. They are mechanical. They are specific. They can be understood. And once understood, they can be deliberately shaped. This is what we mean when we say the quantum field claims your new reality. The field is not passive. It is not sitting there waiting for you to want something hard enough. It is in constant interaction with the conditions of your awareness. And when those conditions shift, when the coherence of your consciousness reaches a specific threshold, the field doesn't gradually drift toward a new configuration. It collapses. Suddenly, completely, into a new stable state. That is the gate. That collapse is the crossing point. And that is what we are building toward tonight. If this is landing somewhere real in you, here's something I want to offer before we go deeper. Have you spent years shielding yourself from other people's energy? Boundaries, releases, energy clearings, and still wake at 3 a.m. running someone else's anxiety? Those tools treat it as outside you. It's not. Your nervous system has adjusted to every room for so long, it forgot its baseline. The sealed timeline, a quantum guide to becoming untouchable by wrong frequencies, walks through the 5-step crossing: the adjusting pattern, the breaking point, the crossing itself, what stable feels like, and why old evidence shows up. Every tool you tried treated this as an outside problem. This one ends the adjusting pattern that made you a receiver in the first place. The longer you adjust, the harder it gets to come back to yourself. Open it tonight. It's in the pinned comment below. Now let's return to the exact mechanism we were tracing together. But I need to explain something before we go further, because this is the piece that most people get wrong. And getting it wrong is precisely why they stand at the gate for years without crossing. There is a phenomenon in physics called hysteresis. It comes from the study of magnetic materials, but it applies across many systems. Hysteresis describes what happens when a system resists change, even when the conditions for change are present. A magnetic material, when you first apply a magnetic field to it, doesn't immediately align. There's a lag. The system has a memory of its previous state, and that memory creates resistance to the new one. You have to push past a threshold before the material suddenly, completely reorients. And here is the crucial part. The threshold for switching from state A to state B is different from the threshold for switching back from state B to state A. The system doesn't retrace the same path. Once it crosses, the conditions that would return it to the previous state are different, harder to achieve, sometimes impossible within normal ranges. This is called the hysteresis loop. And it is why, once you genuinely cross a quantum threshold of consciousness, going back is not just difficult. It is structurally prevented. The old state requires conditions that no longer exist. You have felt this before, even if you didn't have language for it. There are moments in your life where something changed and you knew, with a certainty that had nothing to do with logic, that it was permanent. Not because you decided it was, not because you told yourself it was, but because the internal landscape had reorganized in a way that made the old configuration simply unavailable. A relationship ended, and you knew it was over before you could explain why. A belief collapsed, and you couldn't reconstruct it, even when you tried. A version of yourself dissolved, and no amount of effort could resurrect it. That was hysteresis. That was a quantum threshold crossed. That was a new reality claiming you, not the other way around. Tonight, we are going to understand what creates the conditions for that kind of crossing. Specifically, not generally, not philosophically. specifically. There are three conditions that have to be present simultaneously for a quantum field to collapse into a new stable configuration. Three conditions that, when they converge, create what we call coherence at the threshold. When all three are present, the collapse is not a matter of effort. It is a matter of inevitability. The gate opens because the frequency on this side finally matches what's on the other side. And the field, which has been holding all those possibilities in superposition, suddenly has a reason to collapse into one. Let me name the three conditions, and then let's spend real time with each of them, because each one is a threshold within the larger threshold. Each one is its own gate. The first condition is signal clarity. The second is noise reduction. The third is resonant duration. Together, they create what we're calling coherence at the threshold. And tonight, over the course of this listening, we are going to build all three. Let's start with signal clarity. In quantum physics, when you want to measure a system, the quality of your measurement depends on the signal-to-noise ratio of your detector. A detector that is picking up a lot of background noise, a lot of interference from the environment, produces measurements that are blurry, uncertain. The system appears to be in more states than it actually is, because the noise is being mistaken for signal. When you clean up the detector, when you reduce the noise and sharpen its sensitivity to the actual signal, the measurement becomes precise. The collapse becomes clean. The reality that emerges is definite rather than smeared. Your consciousness is a detector. And most people's consciousness, most of the time, is running at an extremely poor signal-to-noise ratio. Here is what creates the noise. Not stress exactly, though stress contributes. The primary noise source in human consciousness is what neuroscientists call the default mode network, or DM. This is the network of brain regions that activates when you are not focused on a specific external task. When you're daydreaming, ruminating, replaying the past, rehearsing the future, constructing narratives about yourself and others. The DMN is extraordinarily active in most people. It is the mental equivalent of a radio left on in every room of the house, all tuned to different stations, all playing at once. The default mode network is not bad. It's essential for certain kinds of thinking, for planning, for social cognition, for narrative self-understanding. But it is catastrophically bad for signal clarity at the quantum threshold. Because the DMN generates an enormous amount of internally produced activity that the consciousness system then has to sort through when trying to detect what the field is actually offering. It's like trying to hear a single clear tone in a room full of competing sounds. The tone is there. The field is broadcasting. But the noise floor is so high that the signal can't register with enough precision to produce a clean collapse. This is why so many people feel like they're doing everything right, and nothing is changing. They're not failing to want the new reality. They're failing to hear it. The signal is present. The coherence is almost there. But the noise is too high for the measurement to be clean enough to trigger the collapse. Signal clarity is built through a very specific kind of attention. Not concentration exactly. Concentration is effortful. It's a pushing toward something. What we need is more like receptive precision. An open, highly sensitive listening that isn't generating its own content. This is a different neurological state from both relaxed diffusion and focused concentration. It's what contemplative traditions have been trying to cultivate for thousands of years under different names. And it's what tonight's listening is designed to produce. When you listen tonight, not just to the words, but to the space between the words, to the quality of silence that carries this transmission, you are training your consciousness to shift from a high noise, low clarity state to a low noise, high clarity state. And in that state, the signal from the quantum field, the actual configuration of your new reality that has been sitting in superposition, waiting for a clean enough measurement to collapse into, becomes detectable, becomes real. That is condition 1, signal clarity. If this transmission is landing somewhere real in you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe so we can keep building this together. Now, condition 2, noise reduction. This is related to signal clarity, but distinct from it. Signal clarity is about the quality of your attention. Noise reduction is about what you stop generating. And this is where we have to talk about something that most people find uncomfortable, because it implicates a pattern they've been running without realizing it. The primary noise generator in most people's consciousness is not their emotions. It's not their thoughts. It's their unexamined certainties. Here is what I mean. The quantum field holds your new reality in superposition. It is, in a very real sense, already there, already real in the probability distribution. But superposition can only collapse into a state that the measurement apparatus can register. If your consciousness has a pre-existing, rigid certainty about what is and isn't possible, what is and isn't available to you, what kind of person you are, and what kind of life you can have, then that certainty acts as a filter. It's not just noise. It's a noise that specifically blocks the frequencies of the new configuration. Think of it this way. A radio receiver that is locked onto a specific frequency cannot receive signals on other frequencies, no matter how strong those signals are. The lock is the problem. The receiver is working fine. It's just tuned to the wrong station, and it's tuned there so firmly that the tuning mechanism has seized. Your certainties, the ones you don't even notice because they feel like just the way things are the seized tuning mechanism. They are not protecting you from false hope. they are preventing the collapse. And here is the paradox that makes this condition so difficult to work with. The certainties that most powerfully block the new reality are not the ones you know you have. They are the ones that feel like observations, the ones that feel like you're just being realistic, the ones that you would defend not as beliefs, but as facts. I'm not the kind of person who gets lucky breaks. That's not a belief. That's just what I've observed. Things like that don't happen for people like me. Not a belief. An observation. I've tried before, and it didn't work. Not a belief. History. These feel like facts because they are constructed from real experiences. But they are not facts. They are certainties built from a limited sample of data, filtered through a consciousness that was already tuned to find confirming evidence. And they are generating a specific kind of noise in your field that is preventing the superposition from collapsing into the new configuration. Noise reduction, then, is not about forcing yourself to think positively. It is not about affirmations. It is about something more precise, the deliberate suspension of your certainties. Not their replacement, not their denial, their suspension. The temporary, conscious act of releasing your grip on what you know is true long enough for the field to show you what is actually available. This is harder than it sounds. Certainties feel like ground. Releasing them, even temporarily, feels like falling. But the ground they provide is the ground of the old reality. And you cannot stand on the ground of the old reality and simultaneously allow the new one to collapse into being. You have to, for a moment, be willing to be in free fall, to not know, to let the superposition remain open long enough for a different collapse to become possible. Tonight, as you listen, I'm going to ask you to do something specific. I'm going to ask you to hold your certainties loosely, not to abandon them, not to pretend they don't exist, but to hold them the way you hold a handful of sand rather than a stone. To feel them as provisional rather than fixed. To notice when they arise that they are not observations. They are tuning, and you can retune. That is condition 2. Noise reduction. Now, condition 3. Resonant duration. This is the one that most people don't know about, and it is the one that makes tonight different from every other night you've tried something like this. In physics, resonance is what happens when a system is driven at its natural frequency. When you push a swing at exactly the right moment in its arc, the amplitude builds. Each push adds to the last. The system accumulates energy in a way that would be impossible if the pushes were random or mistimed. The key is not the force of the push. It is the timing. It is the match between the driving frequency and the system's natural frequency. when a quantum system is being held in a coherent state, meaning a state where its superposition is maintained with high signal clarity and low noise, there is a duration threshold that must be reached before collapse becomes possible. The system has to be held in coherence for long enough for the resonance to build, for the amplitude to reach the point where the collapse is energetically favorable, where the new configuration is more stable than the superposition. This is why a single moment of clarity doesn't always produce a lasting change. You've had moments of clarity, moments where you felt the gate, where you could almost see through to the other side, where something in you knew with absolute certainty that a new reality was possible. And then the moment passed, and the old configuration reasserted itself, and you were left with the memory of the clarity, but not the reality it pointed to. That is not failure. That is insufficient resonant duration. The coherence was real. The signal was clear. But it didn't hold long enough for the collapse to complete. The resonance built and then dissipated before the threshold was crossed. Tonight is specifically designed around this. The length of this transmission is not arbitrary. It is not padding. It is the resonant duration required to hold your consciousness in a coherent state long enough for the collapse to become possible, long enough for the new configuration to become more stable than the superposition, long enough for the field to claim the new reality rather than just gesture at it. This is why the instruction is to listen for just one night. Not because one night is a magic number, but because one sustained, coherent listening session held with signal clarity and noise reduction can reach the resonant duration threshold in a way that 10 scattered, half-attentive moments cannot. Duration matters. Continuity matters. The coherence has to build without interruption, the way a swing has to be pushed at the right moment every time. Not randomly, not occasionally, but consistently, until the amplitude is high enough to do something. So those are the three conditions: signal clarity, noise reduction, resonant duration. And tonight, this listening is the environment in which all three converge. But before we go into the practice, I want to tell you about two people. I'm going to call them Miriam and Elias. Their stories are composites, archetypes drawn from patterns I've observed across many crossings. But the details are specific, because the truth is always in the details. Miriam had been standing at her gate for 4 years. She knew something was supposed to change. She had done everything that was supposed to produce change. She had read the books, attended the workshops, done the journaling, said the affirmations, built the vision board, hired the coach. She was, by any external measure, a person who was trying. And she was exhausted in the specific way that only sustained trying produces. That bone-deep fatigue that comes not from overwork, but from working hard in the wrong direction, from pushing against a gate that opens inward. The gate Miriam was standing at was the gate between a life organized around other people's definitions of success and a life organized around her own signal. She had a career that looked impressive from outside and felt hollow from inside. She had relationships that were functional and joyless. She had a self-concept built from what she had achieved rather than what she was. And that self-concept was beginning to crack in ways she was working very hard not to notice. The noise in Miriam's consciousness was enormous. Not because she was a chaotic person. She was actually quite disciplined. But her discipline was in service of the noise. Every morning, she got up and immediately generated a full day's worth of internally produced content. The to-do lists, the self-evaluations, the comparisons, the anticipations, the rehearsals. By the time she sat down to meditate, which she did every morning for 20 minutes, her consciousness was already running at such a high noise floor that the 20 minutes of sitting produced something that felt like rest, but was actually just quieter noise. The signal was never clear enough. The certainties were never loosened enough. And the duration was never long enough. Because 20 minutes of half-coherent attention doesn't build resonance. It just pauses the noise briefly before it reasserts. Miriam's breakthrough did not come from trying harder. It came from a single night, not unlike tonight, when she was too tired to generate the noise. When the default mode network, exhausted by years of overuse, finally went quiet enough for the signal to get through. She wasn't doing anything special. She was just lying in the dark, too tired to think, listening to a transmission that was holding a specific coherent frequency. And for the first time in years, she heard something that wasn't her own voice. What she heard was not words. It was a configuration, a felt sense of how things could be arranged differently. Not what she should do, not what she should want, but a direct, immediate, sensory impression of a different organization of her life. It lasted about 40 seconds. And in those 40 seconds, the superposition collapsed. The new configuration became real in a way that the old one immediately stopped being. She didn't decide to change. The change had already happened. She was just catching up to it. That is what a quantum collapse feels like from the inside. Not a decision. Not a resolution. A sudden, complete, irreversible reorganization of what is real. The gate doesn't open gradually. It opens all at once. And then it is open, and you are through. And the place you were standing before is simply gone. Now let me tell you about Elias. Elias was also standing at a gate. His gate was different from Miriam's in every surface detail and identical in its fundamental structure. Elias had been given an opportunity, not a small one, something that, if he moved toward it, would require him to release a version of himself that he had been building and protecting for 15 years. The opportunity pointed toward something he genuinely wanted, had always wanted, had told himself he wanted, while quietly arranging his life so that it would never actually arrive. Because Elias, like most people who have been disappointed before, had developed a very sophisticated system for wanting things from a safe distance. He wanted the new reality the way you want something in a store window when you have no intention of going inside. The wanting felt real. It produced the emotions of wanting, the longing, the excitement, the occasional grief. But it was structured to protect him from the actual crossing, because crossing requires releasing the old state, and Elias's old state, hollow as it was familiar. Familiar is its own kind of comfort. Familiar is the ground, you know, even when the ground is bad. The noise in Elias's consciousness was different from Miriam's. His was quieter on the surface and louder underneath. He had learned to appear calm. He had learned to present himself as someone who had processed his fears, who was open, who was ready. But underneath the presentation was a constant, low-frequency hum of what I can only call preemptive grief. The anticipatory mourning of the old self that would have to be released if he actually crossed. He was grieving something he hadn't lost yet, and that grief was generating enough noise to prevent the signal from ever getting clean. Elias's crossing happened differently from Miriam's. It happened not in a moment of exhausted silence, but in a moment of sudden, sharp clarity that arrived in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. He was doing something mundane, and something in the mundanity of it, the sheer ordinariness of another day of the same life, produced a kind of disgust. Not dramatic disgust, not a breakdown, just a quiet, clean, final recognition that the cost of staying was higher than the cost of crossing. That recognition is what we call the threshold tipping. The moment when the energy required to maintain the old configuration exceeds the energy required to collapse into the new one. In thermodynamics, this is called a first-order phase transition. Water doesn't gradually become steam. It holds its liquid configuration under increasing temperature until the moment when the energy cost of remaining liquid exceeds the energy cost of becoming vapor, and then it transitions completely, all at once. The water doesn't partially become steam. It crosses. Elias crossed. Not because he became braver, not because he worked through his fear, but because the energy cost calculation flipped. The familiar became more costly than the unknown. And in that moment, the superposition collapsed. The new configuration claimed him. He described it later as feeling like something clicked, like a lock he hadn't known was locked, suddenly releasing. Like the room rearranged itself while he was looking at it. He didn't do anything. He didn't decide anything. The crossing happened, and he was on the other side. And the only thing left to do was to move in the direction the new reality was already pointing. Both Miriam and Elias had been standing at their gates for years. Both of them crossed in a single moment. Both of them described the crossing not as an achievement, but as a release. Not as something they did, but as something that happened when the conditions were finally right. The conditions: signal clarity, noise reduction, resonant duration. Tonight, we build those conditions, and then we let the field do what it does when coherence reaches the threshold. I want to pause here and ask you something. Have you ever stood at a threshold and known in your body before your mind caught up that you had already crossed? A moment when the old life was still visible behind you, but you could feel that you were never going back. Drop that moment in the comments. Not the story of it, just the feeling of it. One sentence. Because naming it here, in this space, is its own kind of signal. Let me talk now about what is actually on the other side of your gate. Not in general, specifically, because this is important, and because most people have a distorted picture of it, that is itself a source of noise. The other side of your gate is not a fantasy version of your life. It is not a life without difficulty. It is not a permanent state of ease or abundance or joy, though it may contain more of all of those than your current configuration does. The other side of your gate is a different organization of the same raw material, the same hours in the day, the same basic human needs, the same relationships or different ones, but relationships with the same fundamental human textures. The other side is not an escape from reality. It is a different reality, a different stable configuration of the quantum field that is your life. And here is what makes it genuinely different, what makes it worth crossing toward. It is a configuration that is coherent with who you actually are, rather than who you've been pretending to be, or who you've been trying to be, or who you were before something changed, and you didn't update the configuration to match. The quantum field of your life is always seeking coherence. This is not metaphorical. Coherence is the natural state of a quantum system when it's not being forced into an incoherent one by external conditions. When the conditions change, or when the consciousness embedded in the field becomes coherent enough to stop forcing the incoherence, the system moves toward its natural coherent state. That natural coherent state is what we're calling your new reality. It is not invented. It is not manufactured. It is what was always there, in superposition, waiting for the measurement conditions to allow it to collapse into being. What changes on the other side? Let me be specific. The first thing that changes is your relationship to effort. Not that things become effortless, but that effort stops feeling like fighting. In the old configuration, most of your effort was being spent maintaining the incoherence. holding yourself in a state that didn't fit, suppressing signals that were trying to point you elsewhere, managing the dissonance between who you were and what you were doing. That effort was enormous, and it was invisible because you'd been spending it for so long that it felt like just the cost of being alive. On the other side, that effort is freed. Not because life becomes easy, but because your effort is now aligned with the direction the field is naturally moving, rather than against it. The second thing that changes is your relationship to time. In the old configuration, time felt like a resource you were running out of. There was always not enough of it, always too much happening, always the sense of being behind. This is a symptom of incoherence. When your consciousness is fragmented, when it's running high noise and low signal, time feels like it's being consumed by the maintenance of the fragmentation. On the other side, time opens. Not because you have more hours, but because the hours you have are no longer being spent on the maintenance of what doesn't fit. The third thing that changes is your sensitivity to the field. This is perhaps the most important one. On the other side of the gate, you become more sensitive to the signals the quantum field is broadcasting, not less. The crossing doesn't make you immune to the field's communications. It makes you more attuned to them, because the noise floor is lower, because the certainties are held more loosely, because you've learned through the crossing that the field can be trusted, that the collapses are not random, that they are always pointing toward greater coherence, and that sensitivity becomes its own kind of navigation. You stop needing to plan every move from the limited information of the old configuration and start being able to read the field directly. This is what people mean when they say things like, "Things just started falling into place," or "I stopped forcing it, and it happened." They're not describing luck. They're describing what happens when a coherent consciousness is embedded in a field that is naturally moving toward its own coherent configuration. The falling into place is not random. It is the field doing what it does when the measurement conditions finally allow it to. Now, I want to talk about the specific cost of not crossing, because this is something that almost never gets addressed directly, and it needs to be, because understanding the cost of hesitation is part of what loosens the certainties that are generating the noise. Standing at the gate has a cost. It is not a neutral position. It is not safe waiting. Every moment you spend in superposition, every moment your consciousness holds the old configuration in place through the force of its certainties and its noise, is a moment of energy expenditure that is not going toward anything. It is pure maintenance cost. The energy of holding a system in an incoherent state against its natural tendency toward coherence. And here is the specific way that cost accumulates. It accumulates as exhaustion that doesn't respond to rest. As a kind of chronic, low-grade resistance that you've learned to call just how things are. As the specific flavor of tiredness that comes from fighting a current you can't see, in a direction you can't name, for reasons you can't quite articulate. You know this tiredness. It's not the tiredness of having done too much. It's the tiredness of having held too long. The gate being open is not a permanent